So, good afternoon. Today we'll go to part two of the lecture on how to be a marketing doctor um, in 77 slides. The other title for this lecture is the paradigm shift from the 4 Ps of marketing to the 54 Ps. During the first part, we already discussed the additional 3 Ps, which are people, process, and physical evidence, which we add to the traditional 4 Ps of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion, which we call the marketing mix. So in the 21st century, it's no longer sufficient to have the 4 Ps and 7 Ps alone, but we'll have to work with the 54 Ps of marketing. Why this model? No? In the same way that doctors use stethoscopes, economists use GNT, what else? Uh, we need quick indicators to give us a valid diagnosis. Okay, this is the same for this 54P model. This allows you to quickly diagnose most marketing problems. So question, why do we use blood tests and x-rays widely for diagnosis? What's the advantage of using these diagnostic tools? Available, yes. Ano pa? Quick result. And then non-invasive, cheap, generally reliable, di ba? So, unlike if a patient goes to you and then surgery kagad, no? Invasive kagad and expensive. This might not give everything, but this gives you a parang first look at what may be wrong before you proceed any further, no? So, this is what you mentioned. All the advantages. The only disadvantage is not as complete as a full test. No? But initial temperature, diba? If you have a fever, temperature muna, and then it gives you a direction to go. So, imagine a patient going and then after the first 2 minutes, you say, brain surgery kagad. That's difficult to accept both for the patient and for the pocket. Okay, so now let's start with 54P model. The first P is what we call the potential market. Okay, now who comprises the potential market? The potential market is everybody interested in our product or service. Okay, if we recall the 3 Cs of marketing, the first C of customer, the second C of competitors, and the third C, which is company, but beyond the company, we can call the others as stakeholders. Who else will be interested in your product or service? That's the first P. That's the potential market. Okay, so we're saying this is step one when you're trying to understand a marketing case or a marketing problem. First question to ask, what's the potential market? So if we do a parallel with medical practice, maybe this is tell me about yourself or tell me what you feel. So this is the first step, right? So we represent the potential market in our model as the big yellow rectangle. Now, part of the potential market are your current and future direct and indirect competitors. So you may think of, about yesterday was Valentine's Day, right? What events were competing with one another? What can you do on Valentine's Day? You can go to a movie, you can go to a concert, you can just have a dinner at a restaurant. They're all competing with one another for customers celebrating Valentine's Day. Or even TV or cable, diba? So they're all indirect competitors to one another and to the pocket of the customer. Where do I spend my money for Valentine's Day? Okay, so in summer daw, what competes is fruits and traditional traditional dessert. Kasi fruits become in season during the summer. So that's the way we look at the potential market, not just the direct competitors, but also substitutes. What can substitute for your product or service if the customer has access to these substitutes? Okay, and then current and future. Uh, they may not be a competitor now, but maybe they can compete for your uh, for the customers' choices in the future. Next, the smaller light green rectangle is what we call the probable or available market. So how do we define that? That's everyone with interest, access, income, and qualification to avail of your product. So I no longer swing from product or service. I'll just mention product. Okay. So what do you notice with the probable or the available market? It's smaller than the potential market. Kasi potential market is everybody who may be interested, but the probable is limited by those who have interest, access, income, and qualification to actually get the product. So, for example, of course, we've heard about premium cervical cancer vaccines. Okay, who would have interest, access, and qualification to do that? Siyempre, it's not for males, it's only for females. There's a certain age to be relevant, but because of the price, there's also an income requirement to be able to avail of that. And access-wise, dun sa areas within the cities or places where this is available. So while everybody might be interested in it, the probable market is smaller than the potential market. Okay? So that's the second. So if the first question is who's the potential market, the second question is who's the probable market. Third question, what is the market size? Okay, so we've discussed before that the market should be big enough to matter, but small enough to handle. Meaning, if you enter the market and you're successful, the reward should be worth your time and effort. That's big enough to matter. But also, it should be small enough to handle. Meaning, you could make an impact for your company if you do come in because you are able to handle such a market. For example, in a room, probably the airline business is too big for us, or building a new hospital is too big for us. But a clinic that's big enough to matter and small enough to handle. Okay. Now, the third P is who is your primary target market? Okay. So again, visually, we will see that the primary target market is now so much smaller than your probable market. Okay. So the probable is everybody who can actually buy, but the primary target market allows you to identify who will you target in that probable market. Why do you need to target? Because you have limited resources. Resources as far as time, effort, organization. Okay, so the primary target market will be a subset of the probable market. Next, this is a key difference. Who is the penetrated market? The penetrated market are those who actually buy. Okay. Now, the best scenario is who you target are those who buy, but in reality, it's some of those you target you hit, some of those you target you miss, and some you don't target, but they buy anyway. So there's this very good symbol of the difference between the primary and the penetrated market. So allow me to just show you a visual of what's the difference if you're very successful. No? So here, if you're very good in targeting, there's a very big overlap in the penetrated and primary target market. If you're bad in targeting, here is your primary target market, and the people who actually buy are here. Diba? You don't hit. No, all your efforts are wasted. So the closer the overlap, the better you are in channeling your limited resources to hit your target. Okay. So that's an indicator of marketing efficiency, the overlap between the primary and the penetrated. Next, um, if you now try to imagine it as a roof of the house, the roof is the market, the support is the positioning. Okay, to support your communication is what you call your positioning. Now, if you imagine your company to be at the bottom of this diagram, what the company tells to its market is what we call the brand identity. Okay, I'm telling you this is me, this is what our products can do, this is my commercial, this is what we call the brand identity. Okay? How the market perceives and remembers your communication is what we call the brand image. Okay? Because the company cannot control how the customer will remember, di ba? So, yes, you can tell me a lot of things, but how I remember you is the brand image. Okay. Similarly, the closer the overlap between what you tell the market and how they remember you is a good indication of how well you are communicating. Diba? If I am the best, and if the customer accepts it, yes, you're the best, then successful, no? Pero if it's different, then there's a gap between what you say and how the customer remembers you. Okay. Now, this example, quick survey. Who in the room has Sun? Sun phone? Sun, meron, di ba? Sun phone. Sun phone. Globe phone. Globe. Tapos, smart. Smart. Who has two phones with different, with different SIMs? Yeah, but you have two networks. You have access to two networks. Okay. So, this example is relevant because Sun came in when the two were already dominant. Smart and Globe were already very dominant. So, it was the third player coming in. No? And when Sun came in, it was telling to everybody, hey, shift to Sun because we will be the first to offer only calls and only text. As a company, it was willing to do that, get less revenue because it was trying to penetrate the market. It was trying to encourage shift from the very dominant to it. No? And at the very early stage, it was successful because it was cheap. No, it was very affordable until such time that Globe and Smart also offered the only thing, but within their networks. Okay, so when Sun came in, the brand identity it wanted to communicate to the market was, hey, I'm the cheapest, shift from your Globe or Smart to me. That was the identity it was trying to communicate. However, what happened was a large portion of the market decided that, hey, I won't drop my Globe or Smart because they have better coverage, better quality. But since you're only, I'll use you as my second phone. Okay, so that's the difference between the planned communication and the eventual result. People actually, companies who have many employees, they found it better to issue sun phones para it's a second phone na cheap lang yung rates. No? So that's an example of identity versus image result. Okay. Now, you can imagine we're trying to form a house, no? So, in our diagram, the primary target market is supported by your positioning, and the pillars to the house are your 4Ps. Okay? To support your positioning to your target market are the pillars of the 4Ps. These are the sixth to ninth Ps of our 54P model. Okay. Now, of course, to further support the 4Ps so that they can be stronger, there's what they call the 5P packaging. No? For certain products, especially those we find in supermarkets or in retail outlets, the packaging is a vital element to communicate to the customer because that's where we see the price, that's where we see some of how to use the product, the ingredients. So it's a very tangible uh, and purposeful communication from the company towards the customer. So in some products, the fifth of the 4Ps, which is packaging, is very, very important. Of course, some it's not important, those which don't have packaging. Oh, the other thing that packaging does, aside from putting in price, identifying the manufacturer, it also protects the product during transport or storage, right? So, what else? Okay, so packaging may improve or integrate the delivery of your marketing mix. Okay. Now, now more and more, there's a stronger bind for the 4Ps than packaging. It's what we call participation. And customers no longer become just observers, they become co-creators of the positioning. They become engaged. Where do we see um, the customers being co-creators of the positioning? And the advantage, by the way, with customer participation is there's stronger loyalty. They are co-creators of the positioning. So, where do we see this? Diba, sa mga contest, American Idol, Pilipinas Got Talent, Miss Universe, there's this portion where the customers vote. Okay? Instead of just the judges, the customer vote is a significant part of the decision making. And therefore, whether it really counts or not, customers become what more invested in the result because they're voting. Okay. Where else do we see this participation model? Facebook and YouTube. No? Can you imagine Facebook, your wall, where everything that you put there has to be approved by Facebook or has to be uploaded by Facebook themselves? Then the advantage to Facebook then is they will have full control, but then you will have a harder time making it your own. So your wall, your YouTube channel is your own. They try to still what censor it or put some guidelines to it, but largely YouTube and Facebook are very successful because it's customers uploading the content. No? Again, imagine if in a world where Facebook has to think of what videos should be put here in Facebook or in YouTube. That would be very hard and not be as successful. Um, I don't know if you remember the time when pagers were still here. You experienced pagers. No, uh, Meron pa yung ano, no, easy call and beeper 150. Okay, pocket bell, di ba? Mga doctors ang heavy users or initial users of that. I bring this up because the deficiency or the weakness of that system is you have to call a, a service center to give your message, and sometimes your message is understood or sometimes misunderstood, so the message becomes garbled or ano. And syempre, if you talk to somebody for them to put your message across, medyo nakakahiyang magmura. Diba? You can't be yourself because you know it goes to a person before it gets ano. But now, in text, when we send text or Twitter or post ano, you can say what you want, put your emojis, put your curse words or symbols, and it's fine. There's nothing censoring you or delaying the posting of your participation. Okay? In your practice, where do you see customers becoming part of the delivery of your service? Yes,
Outpatient department, sir.
outpatient
We
department.
ask the patients if they were satisfied with the services and how can we improve more.
Okay, so yun yung sa post service,
Yes, sir.
post service. Where do you see uh, na before or during the service that the customers are participating already?
Pre-op.
Pre-op,
Pre-op.
rehab,
Yes.
saan pa? Patients, no?
Outpatient.
For procedures, sir, we ask consent. So, doon pa lang.
Mm.
What's their choice of management?
Okay. So, di ba, it can be one way, di ba? It can be old style. Doctor, this is what you do, you have no choice. Just accept it or not. Now, you give them choices. If you do this, this is what will happen, but you can choose this. So now the patient now feels that, okay, since this is partly my decision, I'm happier. Di ba? I'm happier, more confident because I was part of that decision. No? So participation is now becoming a larger part of the positioning of companies. Okay. So again, imagine if Facebook or YouTube dictated what content. Oh, hindi pwede yung picture mo, masyado kang pangit. Tapos, if that's the 20th time you've been uploading the picture, di ayaw mo na, di ba? But also, there has to be a balance between participation from the customer and control of the company. So in our example kanina, the text votes to contest, they are balanced by the fact that there's a judges portion, which may be heavier, pwedeng 60% judges portion, and 40% lang yung audience contribution to the winner. The other thing that is done is actually the judges already filter out who are qualified for people to vote on before they vote on it. Diba? Kasi people will not be interested in seeing the very bad performances and then voting on it. So may screening na nangyayari. There's that portion that there's control from the company. Again, if you imagine Facebook, we were very familiar, imagine there are no guidelines and Facebook cannot take down what? Bad posts as far as propaganda or bad language or unacceptable videos. If Facebook didn't have that control, then it would easily go down the drain. No? Kasi magiging ano siya, venue for very bad communication. So in any participation, company should still retain control so that there's a balance between participation and the communication. Okay, so imagine if there's no control, then Miss Philippines will always win Miss Universe, di ba? Kasi merong voting doon na ano eh, online, who votes, eh magaling ang Pilipinas doon eh, sa online voting. No? So we will always be Miss Universe. And then, yun nga, yung mga X-rated videos will be on YouTube. Or there will be, well, although it's happening, no, bullying or trolling on Facebook. When you post and comment, magkakaroon ng exchange where one bullies the other. Or sa Twitter, they put a very clear rule, 140 characters or less. Because beyond 140, it will become a different ballgame for Twitter. So they want you to have only 140 characters or less. Or ito, luma na yung Survivor contest. Diba? Pag walang control, laging mananalo yung kontrabida. So they have to balance it so that, again, what the company wants is that what will happen, or is closer to what will happen. Okay, now after participation comes the 3 Ps of the extended marketing mix. People, process, and physical evidence are like the foundations which allow the pillars or the 4 Ps to be supported. Okay, so the pillars by themselves, they may be wobbly, they may be difficult to stand on their own. What makes them stronger is the foundation of people following a process showing physical evidence that allows the delivery of the 4 Ps. So here at this stage, we now have 14 of the Ps with this diagram. So can you imagine from the first, the potential, the probable, the primary, penetrated positioning, and so on. So that's the first 14 Ps of this model. Now, marketing cannot operate alone. So aside from the 3 extended marketing mix we see here, we have people, production, and payments. As analogy to the other core business functions of HR, operations, and finance. Pinilit na P. So para maging P siya, because we still need the other core functions to support the marketing process. Why production, operations will be in charge of the process, of recruiting the people, payments will pay for the communication, for the salaries, no? So they're also very important to support the marketing function. Now, after that, we make it a 17P, which is purpose. Purpose. No? So companies need to be driven and guided by the company's vision, mission, goals, and objectives. So the 17P is the purpose. And the 18P is the people should be passionate about that purpose. They should want it to be done, and they should be engaged in the achievement of that purpose. Okay. Now, if you are able to achieve or aim for that purpose with a passion, the net result are the 19th and 20th P, which is the persistent profits. So one, you'll be profitable, but the nature of your profit is it will be persistent. Paulit-ulit na profit. Okay? So the first 20 P's are, we can tell it in a story, but part of that P is what we call the triple bottom line. You heard about triple bottom line? What's the triple bottom line? What's the first bottom line? Profit, di ba? So profit is called bottom line revenue because in the financial statement, it's at the bottom, and at the top is revenue, top line. So top line is revenue, bottom line is profit. But in a good marketing analysis, it's not just profit. What's the second bottom line? People. So your people, both your internal customers, which are your employees, and the external customers should also feel that it's profitable for them in your marketing system. And what's the third? Planet. Yun. Or public. Yes. Okay. So wag lang profit, think of people, and third is public. Okay, so try to achieve the triple bottom line. Okay, so since we have people and profit already, we have to think of a symbol for planet. No? So yung planet, it's actually the biggest square, no? Bigger than your potential market. Diba? The planet is the universe where you have a potential market which is larger than your probable market. Okay, so don't just think of yourself or your company or your people. Think of the planet and the general public. And normally that's the most neglected bottom line. 'Cause that's the farthest from the company. Okay, so we're now at 21. How many to go? 33. 33 na lang. Okay, 21st P is the triple bottom line. So yeah, 21 is the planet. Yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah. Planet. Yeah, 21. Okay. Oops. Merong technical challenge. Okay. So now we're saying that perception is greater than physical evidence. Okay? Remember, physical evidence is part of the extended marketing mix, but greater in impact and value is perception. Okay? So this is a visual of a cat thinking it's a lion. Lion ba yan? Lion, di ba? It's a lion. So if you think you're a lion, you're a lion. If you think you're a cat, you're a cat. So in marketing especially, it's the perception which is king rather than physical reality. So they say the best-selling shampoo is not really the best-selling shampoo. It's not the best technical shampoo, but it's the best perceived shampoo. Or more closer to you, the best doctor is not necessarily the most technically qualified, the most successful, but perception-wise, he or she is the most perceived as far as galing. No? So, yes, we can all try to be technically and truly be best, but that's just part of the story. The bigger part is who does the market perceive to be the best in that particular area of specialty. All right? So, commonly they say marketing is a battle for the mind. It's a battle for the mind. Perception is so much greater than reality. Okay? So, like in presidential elections, diba? It's the perception that wins. Okay. So the 22nd P is perception, and it's really what our mind sees and then eventually remembers. Kaya in our previous lectures or discussions, we were very particular in making sure whatever we communicate has to be remembered. Otherwise, it's useless communication. So we have to battle for this P, which is perception. Okay. So where do we put perception in our diagram? It influences here in the mind of the primary target market. So this perception. Okay. Now the first 22 P's until perception is only the first dimension of, if you can imagine, a cube, a Rubik's cube of the marketing stethoscope. Okay, and what's nice about the first 22 P's is we can actually draw it and understand the value of it as we draw it as far as a process is concerned. So allow me to just pause at this point and let's try to draw this first 22 P's of the 54P model. So if you imagine a Rubik's Cube, But there are certain colors. You might think that you've already aligned all the colors on one side. Oh, I'm successful already. It's all colors are the same. But it's possible that how many other sides are there? 5 other sides are not aligned. So the first 22 just gives you the first dimension of a particular marketing case. And if you want to really go deeper, then you go to the next 32. So what are the next dimensions of our model? Uh, yeah, our marketing diagnostic toolkit will have several dimensions. We go to the second dimension, which is related to the period, because timing is key. Okay, so it's like taking the pulse of a patient. Here you take account, okay, what period are we talking about? Okay, so the question is, when does marketing happen versus sales? Marketing happens before, during, and after the sale. Sales is just the delivery and exchange of product and money, but marketing must happen before, during, and after the sale. So the timing of your marketing effort doesn't end. It has to be continuous. So you must be aware of what time frame you are considering for your plans, whether it's past, present, or para maging future. Projected or proactive future. Okay, so the second dimension is about the time element of what is happening, right? So our analogy is like taking the pulse. No? The pulse can be mabilis ngayon, it's fast, but at a later time, it's normal. So timing is key. The third dimension is related to thermometer. Thermometer is a point of comparison. Okay. Now, for some of you who've been assigned this chapter, when we view a product, we can't help but compare it to help the customer position it in his mind. Especially if it's a new product, the customer will try to see, okay, this new thing, how is it similar to what I know? And how is it different to what I know? So when you're trying to communicate for the first time, and even during repeat communications, you can compare to products that are similar and compare to products that are different. Okay. Supposing you have this new food, people don't know what it is. No? So, it's like Nova, it's like Piatos, it's like ano. So, okay, so snack siya, it's crunchy, it's salty, and ano, diba? It allows you a point of parity, but how is it different? Then you have to mention, oh, it's like this, but here is what's different about it. So, in the third dimension, comparison is key. Point of parity, point of difference. So, why do we say that a temperature of 38 is high or 39? Because we compare it to something we know, or the standard, which is 36, 37. Diba? If there's no such standard, then 39 is irrelevant. So we always need a point of comparison. So how we must paint or project our product to be similar or different from something that people know, make it into a picture so people will remember. Okay. The fourth dimension is a perspective of the three C's. No? So my comparison naman dyan is the eye test. No? When we do the eye test, so consider the three strategic C's of marketing. Imagine driving a car, and the only way you navigate is just viewing it through the front mirror. Diba? That would be a dangerous way to drive a car. You just look straight. Diba? So, in perspective, you must always look at the other C's of your strategic C. Okay? So, the 35th P is perspective. Okay. 35th P is perspective. 35th na siya. Okay. Now, we all know this. The first side is customer, the second side is company, and third side is competition. And in our model, the three C's are also here. No? So the company is at the bottom part of it, customers are on top, and then outside this probable market is your competition. So what happens is your company tries to reach the right customers, and then competition tries to block your communication and profit. So you need to have that perspective that you're not the only one trying to talk to the customers. There are many competitors who are also trying to achieve what you want to achieve. Okay. Now, to beat your competitors, the company must listen to your customers. So we have this diagram of the stethoscope where the company is listening to its customers to be, and the better listener and responder to what the customer needs, wants, and demands will win this battle. Okay. So the fifth dimension is probing. No? So meron tayong pulse, which is time. We have the eyesight, which is perspective. And then what else? Temperature, which is point of comparison. The next dimension is probing Y. So 36P is probe Y. So we need to respond to the challenge of protecting the customer versus bad brands. So the 37Ps, we should have the customer's best interest in mind. So if we know how we can protect them versus bad brands, we should do it. We should prevent loss of sales, share, or profit. And we should try to prolong our own product life cycle. So we will be able to achieve this if we always ask why. Why is this happening? Why are customers losing sales, share, or profit? Why is the product life cycle acting like that? And then we want to preserve being the preferred brand. A customer can choose many brands, but we want to be able to achieve the preferred brand status. Okay. The sixth and last dimension is an X-ray. So si Jason ata, expert siya, no? So what do we see inside the market? So inside the Philippine psyche, our market is really predominantly poor, 85% poor. But we're a very patient market. We're willing to line up. We're willing to wait. We're also very resilient. They're willing to persevere through many challenges. Imagine people lining up for days just to enter a Wawawi episode. Di ba? Kasi for them, it's okay because it's worth the price. So this is inside the Philippine market psychology, which is poor, patient, and they persevere. Persevere, sorry. It's a wrong spelling. Persevere, and because we're very resilient. And if you're more channel, we have puso, pamilya, and pananampalataya. If you were to characterize the Philippine market, we're generally like that. Meron pa silang dinadagdag, we're also very forgiving. Because we easily forget. Diba? The Marcos crimes, diba? We forget and forgive. That's the Philippine psyche. That's the Philippine market. Hindi siya. Okay. But we are also very religious, diba? So that are characteristics of how the Philippine market thinks. So what's the outcome? No? In the end, all these tools we use to give a prescription, diba? That's the end result. So we have to prescribe something, and the prescription, after going through the first 47 Ps, will be what's the plan for the next action? what's our promise? There's what we call a brand promise. If you do what we say you do, then this is what you will get. There's also the personal promise of the frontliner or the person actually talking to the customer. There's a promise by the brand, and there's a personal promise by the person in contact with the customer. And then there's a professional promise by the company or brand, and how it performs versus what you expect. Okay? Uh, that's a natural consequence. When you promise something, then the customer expects something, and the gap will either dictate whether the customer is happy or not. Diba? So you have to manage that customer expectation. A very easy example of managing expectation is, remember, if you go to fast food, your expectation is you will be able to give your order and get your order 2 to 4 minutes. Sometimes or oftentimes that's possible, but in the few cases that they know they won't be delivered, they can't deliver the time promise. They will say, sir, 15 minutes, are you willing to wait? So if you say, yes, I'm willing to wait, then you won't get frustrated if it takes 15 minutes to give your order. So if you go to a restaurant, after taking your order, you say, sir, your order will be ready in 15 to 20 minutes. Then it's managing the expectation. Okay? And that's how performance will be taken. And then the perceived net value of everything is the benefit versus the cost. Because it costs the customer time, money, effort, frustration, psychological requirements to avail of your product. It has to be compared versus the benefit. So again, the visual you see is just the first dimension of our 54P. It's kind of simple, but it allows you to easily remember the story and the process. And we don't want it to look like this. This is hard to remember. But if you use this model, you are assured that you will think of all the dimensions of a marketing case. So what's the first dimension? The 22 P's, right? What's the second dimension? It's the time, the timing, the pulse. What's the third dimension? Third dimension is temperature, point of comparison. What's the fourth dimension? Time muna.
Point of comparison.
Point of comparison is the thermometer. The fifth one is eye test, which is perspective. And the sixth one is X-ray inside the Philippine psyche. Okay, so that's those are the 6 dimensions of thinking of a marketing case. Certainly, the first dimension will be the most frequently used. But if you want to go deeper, you go through the 5 other dimensions of our toolkit. So now, in about 49 minutes of this lecture, you are, hopefully, nag-save siya para hindi ko na siya uulitin.